after the inputs we had today from our friends from New Zealand, and then the geological logs, and then the choices of the bits, those output from the previous speakers are actually the inputs that we have as a rig contractor. How deep the geothermal well will be, what pumping requirements would the client require. One said, Mr. Adams mentioned about 800 gallons a minute or about 3,000 liters a minute. How many PSI would that be when we come to the bottom of the well? Now that what dictates us in choosing what rig equipment would be fitted for that particular well. Now that is where Thermaprime would come in. With our experience when we were conceptualized, when we were incorporated in 2011, we began with us deploying as a crewing contractor to the rigs of our clients back then. And while we were doing it, we were busy exploring the opportunities outside the country, outside the Philippines. We looked into Africa, we looked at opportunities in Kenya, Tanzania, Ethiopia, Latin America also, El Salvador, Nicaragua, Chile, and Peru. And we were pleasantly surprised that Taiwan is becoming more and more aggressive in your geothermal aspirations. And with the experience that we had back home in geothermal steam production, we believe that it's best that we can share, we can interact, what we can offer. That's why we brought a lot of people back home. They're seated there at the back for us to consult with. It's one of them. That's Dewey. Okay. What makes us unique is that we are vertically integrated with our client, Energy Development Corporation. We are of the same senior managers. And we are also aligned with the values of our parent company, construction company. Our crew, our specialists are also endowed with disciplines arising from us as early as 1976 when we were first working with them in the geothermal drilling of the Philippines. That's why, as we have mentioned before, it's best that we can share what we know for achieving the geothermal aspirations of this country. Accordingly, we will begin our story with how we did it back home, starting from 1976. And then we will have a discussion on how we manage risks that will eventually guide us in selecting perhaps the best drilling or contracting strategy for organizations here to choose from when you start getting busy with your strategies. We first came into existence with deploying crews back home to the existing rigs of our client. Now we eventually acquired 2 more rigs, followed by 3 more rigs. Now we have had consulting experiences with a Japanese engineering firm in Kenya. So that's what we call capacity building. We had capacity building in Kenya. We deployed a team of specialists there, a drilling engineer, a tool pusher, a maintenance supervisor, a safety specialist. That's what we did there. We trace our roots as early as 1976 when PNOC has had about 9 rigs operating back then. That is a government-controlled organization. We have back then a PNOC Energy Development Incorporated. Now, in 1983, that's where the Philippines became second ranking in terms of geothermal capacity in the world. Now, PNOC EDI eventually became into PNOC EDD, Energy Drilling Division, in 1983. Now, came 2007, we were privatized. Previously being government-owned and controlled, we dropped PNOC and then we became Energy Development Corporation under first gen. Now, the 2 divisions of drilling, the well designers, that's one, and then the drilling people, that's another, they were merged in 2008. They became the Well Construction Group. That's still under Energy Development Corporation. So that's our story. And then in 2011, Thermaprime Well Services was formed. We were rebranded in 2016 as Thermaprime Drilling Corporation. Since 2011, we have completed about 220
projects already. Combined drilling and workover. Majority of them are from the largest two developers in the Philippines. Combined together, that's about 98% of the geothermal capacity of the Philippines. We drilled as deep as 3,200 meters. In 2022, we drilled 3,300 meter well in about 24 days. That's what we finished it. And then, no, in 23 days. And that is immediately followed by a 3,600 meter well in 24 days. So one record is immediately superseded by another record. Now that can be done if we have the right equipment, favorable geological formation, if we follow the well design, if we choose the right bits as mentioned earlier, we adhere to the geological logs and the well design, as Mr. Adams mentioned, one guideline, useful guidelines, the New Zealand code, and if the crew is competent. That's where human resources would come in. Proper training, proper competence, and lastly, the rig has to be reliable. How many percent downtime? It has to be improving well after well. Okay? Now, that's not always the case. That's not always a walk in the park. The 3,300 meter well in 23 days, 3,600 meter well in 24 days, we have had shares of nightmare wells also, of wells from hell. A 2,700 meter well took us about 4 months. We finished that. We had to complete it. The client is requesting us. Cost is piling up. And then we heard it's now producing at 16 megawatts. Now, that's not always the case. A well as deep as 2,700 meters, still being pursued for 90 days, the client sometimes has to give up. It happened also. That's included in the count that you see. So that's a combination of success stories and the challenging ones. In any case, none of them is a total failure because unfinished wells or wells that took so long is still information for all of us to improve. Equipment-wise, manpower-wise, safety-wise, logistics-wise, and engineering-wise. So it's still worth pursuing them. That is the wealth of our rig crew. We have had experience in operating mechanical rigs, SCR rigs, electric rigs, variable frequency drive rigs. These are the previous rigs. All of them are decommissioned, but the experience stays within the crew. Now, this is our current rig fleet. We have 2 rigs of 2,000 horsepowers, 2 rigs of 1,500 horsepowers, and lastly, for compact spaces, 1 rig of this one, 1,000 horsepower. All of them are deployed back home. So that's how aggressive one of our clients are. That's our asset fleet. Now, this is our service offering. The way to read this slide is not from top to bottom. It's best to view this as from bottom to the surface, bottoms up. From here, going to the surface. We are employed to offer offices and camp operations. Yes, we can do that. We have to know how many people would be deployed, how many people would we be accommodating. Suppose we are drilling or operating 4 rigs in one location. Doing how many would you be accommodating? Oh, imagine that, ladies and gentlemen, 600 people. We have to make room for them. We have to have them well fed, given meals, around the clock, laundry included, etc. Asset reliability, how many, we were heard earlier today, code 8 or rig repair. That is a no-no. That's when our business development people will be furious. Mike, we're not getting paid here. So our asset has to be reliable always. We keep downtime as low as possible. Of course, that is to make the client happy as well. If we are registering code 8 or downtime, that's a points against to all of us. And that we do not want to happen. Drill pipes. A 3,000 meter well, how many kilopounds or how many kilofoot-pounds of torque or pull kilopounds will we be experiencing? We have to know those information so that we will be planning on the best set of pipes that we can deploy at the rig site. Casing running, yes, we run them. Heavy lift operations, we have lifting equipment. Transport logistics, we have a specialist here from logistics. Ed, how many truckloads would you move for 2,000 horsepower rig? 110. Imagine that, 110 truckloads. And how many days would you be doing that to complete it? 7 days. In a week's time, he has to transport them. Now, he's physically not doing that, but he is included in planning the resources, the trucking that would be required to complete that task in 7 days. Add that to the rigging up, add that to the preparation of the job site. That's about 10 to 12 days. Imagine that. So that's how busy, that's how challenging the job of the transport logistics. And then from drilling operations, our human resources would ensure that the crew operating it are properly trained. It's not just that we meet on the street. They have to have proper training as dictated by regulatory requirements of the country and as required by the client. Well site management, that's also included. One of the models that we can be exposed at or we can be considering is integrated project management. The drilling contractor can manage the other service contractors as well. Sometimes you only do drilling services. The asset would be from the client. We only provide the drilling crew. As similar to what we are endeavoring in Japan. Yeah, crewing services. And then that would lead us into either of one of the three things. We drill the well construction. We either do an intervention or a workover. And lastly, we do plug and abandonment. If that is what is required for us to do. Incidentally, we're also capable of doing well engineering consultancy. Having said that, here are the risks that we should be made aware of. Now, these are the output of the previous teams, the previous groups, the geologists. They spell the risks for us. How deep the well will be, how mountainous the region will be. Now, these are also the additional input that we have to know. How deep, how deviated will it be? And mind you, that 7 days that Ed has just mentioned earlier, that's being done in mountainous drilling pads. Prerequisite is for us to have access roads, for us to do it in 12 days. And how Eileen is doing it is that we have to work 24/7. Our HR, our human resources. 2 shifts of 12 hours a day working. That's how we do it back home in 3 shifts. 2 shifts at the site, day shift and night shift, and 1 shift on days off. In that case, it's best if we can make use of the day rate instead of a lump sum, instead of a footage. I think that's what's most cost efficient for all of us. Now, this is what's being prepared by a drilling engineer for the contractor's level, for the contractor side. For the safety, you have it here. We do not want Lito Daculio explaining to management that we have lost time incident. We do not want management seeing downtime every time. Okay. So given the depths of the well and given the faults that we will intersect, we are going to report to the management on how long it's going to take to drill one of these wells. By the way, this is the actual days versus depth graph, the very first slide that I have. This is an actual data that we have. The risks are not just shared. The risks above the surface are not just solely for the contractor. It's a collection of the other parties as well, such as the cementing contractor, the directional drilling contractor, collectively, they have to work together to minimize downtime, to expedite drilling. Now, this is a game theory plan of well planning. This is what we want. Geology is good and the drilling is correct. This is a disaster. This is what we do not want. Okay? Geology and drilling gone wrong. Now, having said that, we're going to present about 5 models for us to choose from, depending on the risk appetite of the client. The very first one is totally insourced. Classic examples what we were doing in Kenya. Everything is in-house. Everything is in their organization. The limitation of that is that technology transfer is very, very limited because everything is in-house. Flow of information outside the organization may be limited. It may be complex. And sometimes it may lead to drilling unnecessary wells just to keep the asset busy. Now, the second model that we may want to explore at is the conventional internal drilling department. The rig belongs to the operator, and then some of the specialized services are outsourced, are tendered to another third party. Now, if some of these consumables are managed by the third party, vendor-managed inventory, that's where drilling project management would come in. That's the third model, DPM. Drilling project management would come in. That inventory are managed effectively by the specialists. The fourth is just the drilling management is left to the client. And then the rig contractor manages the rest of the specialized parties. That's what the integrated project management is. And lastly, the opposite of the very first one, that's a turnkey. Everything now is delegated to the rig contractor. Now, what's the takeaway on this? Number one, depending on the risk appetite, depending on the efficiency of the cash flow, that's where we choose which model you will undertake. And then the flow of information. It has to be efficient, whichever model you're undertaking. The second takeaway on the second bullet is if we are a big, robust drilling company, you may want to undertake having an internal drilling department. Lastly, if the drilling company is, the operator is not that big, if they are small, you might want to outsource it. Now, just be careful, just be mindful on the retention of the information if you are going to outsource the services. Okay? Now that ends our presentation. If you have further questions on our slides, Thermaprime, please raise your hand. Where are you? They are at the back. That's one. They can answer that. Secondly, you can reach us through these channels. Contact us. And then Lito's distributing our handouts. You may reach us through those channels. Okay, thank you very much. That ends our presentation.
All right, thank you so much, Michael, for sharing Thermaprime's experience drilling in the Philippines and also